Hey guys, tonight we slip into the misty forests of Aotearoa, where the air hums with the rustle of leaves and the soft chant of women weaving under starlight. Picture yourself barefoot on damp earth, the scent of flax and fern curling around you, as Maori women craft war conveyance cloaks, garments so sacred one wrong stitch could anger the spirits. You're diving into a world where plants and prayers weave power into every thread, and fair warning, you probably won't survive this tangle of rituals without a few goosebumps. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a Maori village around the 17th century, where women gather under a woven canopy, their hands deftly twisting flax into cords. These aren't just cloaks. They're war conveyance cloaks, sacred garments worn by warriors to carry spiritual strength into battle. Maori women, the master weavers, use ritual plants, flax, pingao, even keki, to infuse these cloaks with tapu, a sacred essence. Why plants? Because in Maori culture, every leaf and stem holds mana, a spiritual power connecting the wearer to ancestors and gods. Imagine you're a weaver, your fingers sticky with flax sap, knowing each twist channels divine protection. One slip, and you're not just botching a cloak, you're risking the warrior's life. Historically, Maori weaving was a cornerstone of cultural identity, with cloaks symbolizing status and spiritual power. These war cloaks, called kahu, huru, or kakahu, were reserved for chiefs and warriors, their creation governed by strict rituals. But here's the quirky bit. Some weavers believed the plants chose them, whispering in dreams to guide their hands. Sounds wild, right? Like your houseplant, picking your next project. Historians still argue whether these dreams were spiritual visions or a way to claim authority. Did the plants really speak, or were weavers boosting their credere? You pause by a stream, watching a woman strip flax leaves with a mussel shell, her movements precise as a prayer. The plants aren't just materials, they're partners, harvested with chants to honor Tain, the forest god. Each cloak is a pact between weaver-warrior and the land itself. You squint, noticing patterns in her work, faint swirls that aren't random. These are moko-like designs carrying ancestral stories, but you'll dig into those later. For now, you're struck by the weight of her task. A warrior's survival might hinge on her skill, and in a world of tribal wars, that's no small thing. You step closer, the air thick with the earthy tang of wet flax. The weaver's eyes meet yours, sharp but kind, like she's sizing up your spirit. She's not just crafting cloth, she's weaving courage, binding the warrior to his wakapapa, his lineage. You smirk, thinking it's like knitting a sweater that could save your best friend in a fight. Ever felt that kind of pressure? The cloaks are her battlefield, and the plants are her weapons. But this is just the start. The forest is calling, and you're about to see how those sacred plants are gathered with rituals as intricate as the cloaks themselves. You're deep in the lush forests of Aotearoa, the dawn mist curling around ancient kauri trees as birdsong weaves through the canopy. The air's alive with the sharp scent of wet moss and the faint sweetness of manuka blossoms. And you're still trailing those war conveyance cloaks, their threads pulsing with sacred power. Remember that weaver by the stream, her hands twisting flax with a prayer. She's not just crafting, she's honoring a ritual that starts long before the loom in the gathering of sacred plants. You're about to explore how Maori women harvested these fibers with reverence, and trust me, it's more intricate than picking flowers for a vase. Picture yourself trudging through the undergrowth, your bare feet sinking into cool earth, following a group of women chanting softly. They're here to harvest harakeke flax, the backbone of their cloaks, but this isn't a casual stroll. Every step is a ritual, guided by karakia, sacred incantations, to tame the god of the forest. Historically, Maori weaving relied on specific plants, with harakeke prized for its strong, flexible fibers. Women only cut certain leaves, never the young or central ones, to ensure the plant spirit thrives. It's like trimming your hair, but leaving the roots happy, a balance of respect and survival. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers believed the flax sang to them a faint hum, guiding them to the best plants. Imagine hearing your garden whisper, "Pick me." Sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual intuition or a poetic way to teach plant selection. Did the flax really hum, or were weavers just tuned into nature's cues? You pause as the women kneel by a flax bush, their hands brushing the leaves like they're greeting an old friend. One slices a leaf with a mussel shell, her movements slow, deliberate. She whispers, "Thanks," offering the first cut to the earth, a gift to Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother. You're struck by the care, each gesture a thread in a larger tapestry of respect. They also gather pingao, a golden sedge for decorative strands, and kikie, a climbing plant for softer weaves. Each plant has its own karakia, its own role in the cloak's power. You squint, noticing they avoid certain bushes once deemed too tapu, too sacred to touch. It's a map of invisible boundaries drawn by tradition. You step closer, the damp air clinging to your skin. The women work in rhythm, their chants blending with the forest's hum. They're not just gathering materials, they're forging a bond with the land, ensuring the cloaks carry its mana. A misstep, like cutting a sacred plant without permission, could anger the spirits, cursing the cloak and its warrior. You smirk, thinking it's like forgetting to thank your grandma for her secret recipe, except here the stakes are cosmic. Ever mess up a family tradition, that's the vibe, but with divine consequences. You notice a young weaver, her hands hesitant as she learns the chants. She's nervous, aware that harvesting isn't just skill, it's responsibility. The plants are allies, their fibers destined to shield warriors in battle, but the rituals strict. They harvest at dawn, when the plant's mana is strongest, and never take more than needed. You're impressed, but also feel the weight. These women aren't just weavers. They're guardians of a cycle land, to cloak to warrior and back. You chuckle, picturing them eyeballing a flax bush like you'd size up a tricky group project. Precision is everything. As you slip back through the trees, the forest's chorus tui calls rustling leaves, feels like a lullaby. You're starting to grasp the weaver's world, their hands tying the land spirit to the cloak's power. Those plants aren't just fibers, they're the first stitch in a sacred story. But the real magic happens when the weaving begins, and You're about to see how spirituality threads every twist of their work. You're back in the heart of a Maori village, the morning sun filtering through a woven ware roof, casting dappled light on the earth floor. The air hums with the rhythmic scrape of flax fibers and the faint murmur of women's voices blending with the distant crash of waves. You're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred threads woven from ritual plants. Remember those women harvesting flax with karakia in the forest. Their careful cuts were just the start. Now you're diving into how spirituality guided every step of the cloak's creation, and trust me, it's deeper than a kauri tree's roots. Picture yourself sitting cross-legged among the weavers, their hands moving like dancers as they twist harakeke into cords. This isn't just craft, it's a sacred act steeped in tapu, the spiritual essence that binds the physical and divine. Every cloak is a vessel for mana, the power that protects warriors in battle, and the weavers are its conduits. Historically, Maori weaving was a tapu process often restricted to women of high status or skill who wove in dedicated spaces to keep the work pure. The cloaks, especially war conveyance ones, were imbued with rituals to honor ancestors and gods like Tain and Haine Te Iwaiwa, the patron of weaving. You're watching a weaver pause to chant her voice low, calling on Hain to steady her hands. It's like praying before a big game, but with cosmic stakes. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers believed their looms held spirits whispering advice if treated with respect. Imagine your sewing machine chatting you up. Sounds like a late-night fantasy, right? Historians still argue whether these beliefs were literal or symbolic. Did weavers truly hear spirits, or was it a way to teach reverence for their tools? You lean closer, the scent of flax and wood smoke wrapping around you. The weaver's fingers fly, but her movements are deliberate, each twist a prayer. Before weaving begins, the women purify themselves, washing in a stream and offering karakia to cleanse any negative energy. A cloak tainted by carelessness could weaken its warrior, leaving him vulnerable to enemy spears or worse spiritual harm. You wince imagining the pressure. It's like cooking for a family reunion, knowing one bad dish could ruin the vibe. Except here, the dish is a warrior's fate. The weaving space is sacred, marked by carved posts that hum with ancestral presence. Men are rarely allowed here. The tapu is too strong, and their presence could disrupt the mana. You notice the weaver's focus, their eyes sharp as they work pingao strands into golden patterns. These aren't just designs, they're blessings meant to shield the wearer from harm. The women chant softly, invoking ancestors to guide their hands, ensuring the cloak's power flows unbroken. You're struck by the intimacy, the way spirituality weaves through every cord like a heartbeat. It's not just cloth. It's a lifeline, tying the warrior to his waka papa and the gods. You smirk, thinking it's like charging your phone with good vibes before a big day, except these vibes are divine. The weaver's rituals aren't just tradition, they're armor protecting the cloak's purpose. A young weaver fumbles a strand, and the others pause, their silence heavy. She quickly offers a karakia, righting the mistake before it taints the work. You chuckle, picturing her panic, like you'd feel flubbing a line in a school play. But here, the stakes are life and death, and the spirits are watching. As you shift on the floor, the wearer's warmth settles into your bones. You're starting to feel the weavers whirl their hands, threading spirituality into every fiber. Those cloaks aren't just garments. They're sacred packs born from rituals that honor the land and its gods. But this work isn't solo. It's a sisterhood, and you're about to meet the guilds of weavers who guard these secrets with fierce devotion. You're nestled in the heart of a Maori village, the midday sun warming the woven walls of a where the air hums with the soft scrape of flax and the murmur of women's laughter. The scent of earth and dried pingao lingers, and you're still unraveling the mystery of those war conveyance cloaks, their fibers pulsing with sacred manna. Remember the weaver chanting to Aotearoa, her hand steady as she wove. That spiritual precision isn't a solo act. It's the work of a sisterhood. Now, you're uncovering the secretive guilds of weavers who guarded the cloak's craft, and trust me, it's tighter than a well-woven cord. Picture yourself squeezing into a corner of the where, watching a dozen women work in sync, their fingers twisting flax like a choreographed dance. These aren't just weavers. They're a guild, a sacred circle bound by shared skill and secrecy. In Maori culture, weaving was often organized into tight-knit groups, sometimes called whanau, or hapu-based collectives where knowledge passed only to trusted women. Historically, by the 18th century, these guilds were the backbone of textile production, creating everything from everyday mats to war cloaks for chiefs. Their war conveyance cloaks infused with ritual plants were the ultimate test of their craft, reserved for warriors and steeped in tapu. You're watching a senior weaver, her eyes sharp, correct a younger one's knot. It's not just technique, it's a vow to protect the guild's secrets. Here's the quirky bit. Some guilds had secret hand signals like a flick of the wrist to identify members during gatherings. Imagine flashing a gang sign made of flax sounds like a spy movie, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether these signals were practical or ceremonial. Did they really need covert gestures? Or were they adding flair to their sisterhood? You lean closer, the where's warmth wrapping around you. The guild's hierarchy is clear. Elders lead their mana earned through years of perfect cloaks, while apprentices scrub flax and learn in silence. The war cloak's patterns, swirling moko or chorus spirals, are guild secrets never shared with outsiders. If a weaver betrays the code, she's out her name erased from the one-house stories. You wince, imagining the sting. It's like being kicked out of a group chat, but with ancestral shame. The guild's strength lies in trust, each woman a thread in a larger weave, ensuring no cloak leaves the wear without its full spiritual power. You notice the elder weaver pause, her hands tracing a fish-like pattern on a cloak. It's a guild signature, a mark of their skill, but only another weaver would recognize it. These women aren't just artisans, they're keepers of a legacy, their cloaks carrying warriors into battle with the land's mana. But secrecy breeds tension. Rival guilds in neighboring villages guard their own patterns, and sharing a design could spark a feud or worse, dilute the cloak's tapu. You smirk, thinking it's like rival chefs guarding their sauce recipes, but with spiritual consequences. Ever hide a trick from a friend? That's the guild's vibe dialed up to sacred. You shift, catching a young weaver's nervous glance. She's new, still proving her loyalty. The guild's rules are strict. No weaving without karakia, no teaching outsiders, no rushing the rituals. A single mistake could taint a cloak, leaving a warrior vulnerable. The women work as one, their chants blending into a low hum, but you sense their vigilance. They're not just weaving cloth, they're weaving trust, binding the guild to the warriors who'll wear their cloaks. You chuckle, picturing them double-checking knots like you'd proofread a big email. Precision is their armor, and they wear it well. As you ease back, the wearer's rhythm, scraping flax soft voices, feels like a heartbeat. You're starting to grasp the weaver's world, their sisterhood, a fortress of skill and secrecy. Those cloaks aren't just garments. They're the guild's soul stitched with plants and prayers. But their power shines brightest in war, and you're about to see how these cloaks arm warriors with more than just fibers. You're lingering in the warm glow of a Maori village, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the marae, where the air buzzes with the chatter of children and the distant thud of a warrior's practice spear. The scent of wood smoke and crushed flax clings to your skin, and you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred threads woven by a secretive sisterhood. Remember that elder weaver, her eyes sharp as she traced a fish pattern. Her guild's work doesn't end at the loom, it arms warriors with spiritual might. Now you're diving into how these cloaks conveyed warriors' strength through rituals, and trust me, it's fiercer than a haka's roar. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a clearing where a warrior dons a war conveyance cloak, its golden pingao strands glinting like fire. The cloak isn't just armor, it's a conduit, channeling mana from the land ancestors and gods to make him unstoppable. Maori warriors believed these cloaks woven with ritual plants carried tapu that could turn the tide of battle. Historically, by the 18th century, such cloaks were central to Maori warfare, worn by chiefs and elite fighters during tribal conflicts. Before battle weavers and Tohunga spiritual leaders performed karakia over the cloak, invoking Tumatawenga, the war god, to imbue it with courage. You're watching the warrior stand taller, his chest swelling as the chants wrap around him like a second skin. Here's the quirky bit. Some warriors claim the cloaks whispered battle strategies, in their dreams guiding them to outsmart enemies. Imagine your jacket giving you life advice. Sounds like a wild bedtime story, right? Historians still argue whether these dreams were divine messages or psychological boosts. Did the cloaks really speak, or were warriors hyping themselves up? You step closer, the earth cool under your feet. The ritual's intense. The weaver circles the warrior, her hands brushing the cloak as she chants, sealing its mana. The flax and kiki fibers, harvested with karakia pulse with the land spirit, while Pengao's golden threads symbolize the sun's unyielding strength. You feel the weight of the moment, the cloak transforming the warrior into a vessel of ancestral power. It's not just cloth. It's a pact tying him to his wakapapa and the gods who will guard him against enemy Taiaha. You smirk, thinking it's like putting on your lucky socks before a big test, but with divine backup. The warrior's eyes burn with focus, but you notice the weaver's quiet pride. Her guild's cloak is his shield, its tapu, meant to deflect both physical and spiritual blows. If an enemy's curse, a makutu, tries to weaken him, The cloak's mana drawn from ritual plants is believed to counter it. You're awestruck, but there's a catch. The cloak's power depends on its purity. A flawed weave or a skipped karakia could sap its strength, leaving the warrior exposed. You wince imagining the weaver's stress. It's like baking a cake for a wedding, knowing one wrong ingredient could ruin the day, except here it's life or death. You glance at the other warriors, each cloaked in similar garments, their patterns unique to their guild. The cloaks aren't just uniforms, they're declarations, shouting the wearer's lineage and the weaver's skill. In battle, they're a psychological edge intimidating foes with their shimmering fibers and sacred aura. You chuckle picturing a warrior strutting like he's got a magical force field. Ever wear something that made you feel invincible? That's the cloak's vibe cranked to 11. As the ritual ends, the warrior strides off the cloak flowing like a river of light. You're starting to grasp the weaver's power, their hands stitching courage into every thread. Those cloaks aren't just garments. They're war songs, sung through flax and faith. But the plants themselves, they're more than materials, they're protectors. And you're about to see how their spiritual roots run deeper than the forest floor. You're standing in the fading light of a Maori village, the evening air thick with the scent of damp flax, and the low hum of a tohunga's chant drifting from the marae. The village pulses with life fires crackling, children giggling, but your focus is on those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred fibers woven with divine purpose. Remember that warrior, his cloak shimmering as karakia sealed its mana. That power didn't come from skill alone. It's rooted in the ritual plants, the true protectors of the cloak's spiritual armor. Now you're unraveling the plant's role in shielding warriors, and trust me, it's wilder than a fern unfurling in a storm. Picture yourself crouching by a riverbank, where weavers tend a patch of harakiki, its sword-like leaves swaying like guardians. These plants aren't just materials, they're allies, they're mana drawn from the land, and gods like Tane and Papatuanuku. Harakek, or flax, forms the cloak's sturdy base, its fibers believed to carry resilience against physical and spiritual threats. Pingao, with its golden strands, adds a sun-like glow symbolizing strength, while Kiki's soft, pliable vines bring flexibility, a nod to adaptability in battle. Historically, Maori weavers selected plants for both practical and spiritual qualities, a practice central to textile traditions by the 18th century. Each plant's tapu demanded respect with karakia, ensuring its power flowed into the cloak. You're watching a weaver stroke a flax leaf, whispering thanks, her bond with the plant almost tangible. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers swore certain flax bushes held ancestral spirits glowing faintly at dusk to signal their potency. Imagine your backyard plant winking at you. Sounds like a fantasy novel, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether these glowing tales were spiritual beliefs or poetic metaphors. Did weavers see spirits, or were they hyping the plant's mana to inspire awe? You step closer, the river's gurgle mixing with the weaver's soft chant. She explains that Harakeke's strength isn't just physical. Its mana shields the warrior from makutu, malevolent curses cast by enemy Tohunga. Pingao's golden threads tied to the sun god Ra are thought to burn away fear, while Kiki's vines linked to forest spirits keep the warrior nimble against ambushes. You're struck by the layers, each plant a piece of spiritual armor woven into the cloak. It's like stacking buffs in a video game, but these buffs are divine rooted in the earth's pulse. You smirk thinking of your own lucky charm, maybe a keychain, but here the stakes are a warrior's life. You notice the weaver's careful cuts, avoiding young leaves to preserve the plant's spirit. A misstep, like harvesting without karakia, could sap the plant's mana, leaving the cloak as useless as a paper shield. The weaver's knowledge is fast passed down through generations, blending botany and spirituality. They know which pingao thrives on coastal dunes, which kiki climbed the strongest trees. You're impressed, but the pressure's real. A weak plant means a weak cloak, and a weak cloak means a fallen warrior. You wince, imagining the guilt. It's like flubbing a group project, knowing it tanks someone else's grade, except here it's blood on the battlefield. You glance at a finished cloak nearby, its fibers gleaming with a life of their own. The plant's mana isn't just belief. It's a cultural cornerstone tying the weaver warrior and land in a sacred loop. You chuckle picturing a weaver scolding a flax bush like you'd nag a lazy coworker. Ever talk to your plants? These women do, and it's saving lives. But the cloak's power isn't just in the plants, it's in the patterns, and you're about to see how those woven symbols carry meanings deeper than any battlefield cry. As you ease away from the river, the village's glow, fires flickering, stars peeking through, feels like a warm embrace. You're starting to feel the weaver's world, their plants not just fibers, but protectors, stitching life into every cloak. Those war garments hum with purpose, but their secrets are locked in the thread's designs, waiting for you to unravel them. You're lingering in the soft dusk of a Maori village, the air alive with the chirp of crickets and the faint crackle of a communal fire. The scent of warm earth and woven flax wraps around you, and you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred plants pulsing with mana. Remember that weaver by the river stroking harakeke like an old friend. Her plants were protectors, but the real magic lies in the patterns. She weaves threads that carry sacred meanings. Now you're grasping how these woven symbols etched in flax and pingao speak a language of power, and trust me, it's richer than a koru spiral. Picture yourself kneeling in a where, the woven walls glowing faintly under torchlight, as a senior weaver unrolls a war conveyance cloak. Its surface shimmers with patterns, swirling moko-like curves, sharp tuku-tuku lines, and chorus spirals that seem to pulse. These aren't just designs, they're stories encoding ancestral wisdom, their tribal identity, and spiritual protection. Historically, Maori weaving embedded cultural narratives in cloaks with war cloaks, especially dense with symbolism to empower warriors. By the 18th century, patterns like the Niho Taniwa dragon's teeth or Wakairo carved motifs signaled a warrior's lineage and invoked gods like Tumatawenga. You're watching the weaver trace a koru, her fingers slow like she's unlocking a secret. It's a symbol of growth, tying the warrior to his wakapapa. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers believed their patterns could sing to warriors in battle, boosting their courage with a silent hum. Imagine your scarf hyping you up like a personal DJ. Sounds wild, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or a poetic way to describe morale, did the patterns truly sing, or were they just a psychological edge? You lean closer, the flax's earthy tang sharp in your nose. The weaver explains that each symbol has a purpose. The niho taniwa, jagged like teeth, wards off enemy curses, while the koru channels ancestral strength. A tukutuku zigzag woven in golden pingao mimics lightning, invoking Tauhiri Matea, storm god, to unsettle foes. You're mesmerized, seeing the cloak as a map of power, every thread a prayer for victory. It's like wearing a tattoo that screams your heritage, but this one's woven and it's saving your life. You smirk, thinking of your favorite graphic tee, cool, but it's not stopping the spear. The patterns aren't random. They're guild secrets passed only to trusted weavers. A miswoven symbol could weaken the cloak's mana, leaving a warrior vulnerable. You notice a young weaver practicing a moko, swirl her hand shaky under the elder's gaze. One wrong twist and the pattern's tapu is broken like a glitch in a sacred code. You wince, imagining her nerves. It's like drawing a portrait for your boss, knowing one bad line could tank it. Except here, it's a warrior's fate on the line. The guild's precision is relentless. Their symbols, a language only they fully speak. You glance at the cloak again, its pattern shifting in the torchlight like living things. They're not just art. They're armor, weaving the warrior into a web of gods, ancestors, and land. The weavers chant softly, their voices blending with the fire's crackle, sealing the symbol's power. You're struck by their care, each swirl a vow to protect. You chuckle, picturing a weaver, eyeballing a koru like you'd stress over a tricky text. Ever fuss over something small that felt huge? That's their world, every thread a battlefield. As you ease back, the wearer's warmth lingers its rhythm. Scraping flax murmured karakia, lulling you. You're starting to feel the cloak's weight, their symbols, not just designs, but lifelines, stitching warriors to their purpose. Those patterns hold the guild's soul, but they're crafted with tools as sacred as the plants, and you're about to see how the weaver's hands wield them with divine skill. You're nestled in the flickering glow of a Maori village's wear, the night air seeping through woven walls, with a crisp edge carrying the scent of smoldering manuka and damp flax. The soft scrape of fibers and the weaver's hushed chants fill the space, and you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their koru and niho to niwa patterns pulsing with sacred meaning. Remember that young weaver, her hands trembling as she perfected a moko swirl. Those symbols are the cloak's soul, but they're born from tools as revered as the plants themselves. Now, you're examining the tools Maori women used to weave these ritual cloaks, and trust me, they're sharper than a warrior's taiaha. Picture yourself crouching beside a weaver, her workbench a treasure trove of simple but sacred instruments. There's a mussel shell, its edge honed to slice flax leaves, and a wooden whenu, a beating stick to align threads on the loom. A small stone polisher gleams, used to smooth pingao strands for their golden shine. These tools aren't just practical, they're tapu blessed with karakia to honor Hinete Iwaiwa, the weaving goddess. Historically, Maori weaving tools were crafted with care, often passed down through generations, their mena growing with each cloak they shaped. By the 18th century, weavers relied on these to create war cloaks that balanced strength and spiritual power. You're watching the weaver grip her shell its curve, fitting her palm like an extension of her will. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers believed their tools held memories, remembering every cloak they touched. Imagine your scissors whispering about past projects. Sounds like a craft room ghost story, right? Historians still argue whether this was a spiritual belief or a way to teach tool respect. Did the tools truly hold memories? Or were weavers instilling pride in their craft? You lean closer, the flax's earthy tang mingling with wood smoke. The weavers using a watu technique, her fingers looping flax around a wooden peg, loom each twist precise as a prayer. The wenu taps gently, aligning the weft, while a bone awl carved from a moa maybe pierces kiki vines for intricate patterns. These tools are extensions of her skill, but also her spirit. Before use, they're purified with chants, ensuring no negative energy taints the cloak. A dull shell or a chipped awl could weaken the weave, sapping the cloak's mana. You wince, imagining the stakes. It's like cooking with a bad knife, knowing it could ruin the meal, except here the meal is a warrior's survival. You notice the weaver's care polishing her tools between tasks, wrapping them in woven flax when not in use. They're stored in a carved box, its koru etchings a nod to the patterns they help create. The guild's rules are strict. Only trained weavers handle these tools, and apprentices must earn the right through years of scrubbing flax and chanting karakia. You're impressed by the discipline, but it's intense. A misused tool could anger the spirits cursing the cloak. You smirk, picturing a weaver scolding her all like you'd nag a glitchy phone. Ever baby your favorite gadget? That's the vibe, but with divine consequences. You glance at a young weaver, her hands clumsy as she tries the watu technique. The elder corrects her grip on the wenu, her voice firm but kind. These tools demand respect, their simplicity belying their power. The mussel shell slices flax with surgical precision. The polisher coaxes pingao's glow, and the awl threads kiki like a needle through silk. Together, they birth cloaks that shield warriors from spears and curses alike. You chuckle, thinking it's like assembling a superhero suit with just a pocket knife and some grit. The weaver's skill turns humble tools into sacred instruments, stitching mana into every chord. As you ease back, the wares hum tapping when a rustling flax feels like a heartbeat. You're starting to grasp the weaver's world, their tools not just crafting cloaks, but channeling the land's spirit. Those war garments are miracles of skill and faith, but the guild's unity frays under rivalry, and you're about to witness the tensions sparking over these sacred designs. You're crouched in the shadowed corner of a Maori village where the night air heavy with the scent of flax and the faint glow of embers casting flickers on woven walls, the rhythmic tap of a wenu, and the weaver's soft karakia hum like a lullaby. But there's tension beneath it all. You're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred patterns and tools pulsing with mana. Remember that elder weaver, guiding her apprentice's grip on the awl. Her guild's tools craft miracles, but not all weavers play nice. Now you're witnessing the rivalries among weaving groups over sacred designs, and trust me, it's spicier than a feud over the last Kumara. Picture yourself slipping outside where two weavers from rival guilds face off near the marae, their voices sharp as mussel shells. one's from a hapu famed for its niho taniwa patterns, the other from a group known for swirling koru. Their cloaks, meant to arm warriors with mana, are also badges of pride, and their designs, those sacred swirls and zigzags, are fiercely guarded. Historically, by the 18th century, Maori weaving guilds within and across tribes competed for prestige, their war cloaks, a mark of skill and spiritual power. Sharing a pattern with another hapu could weaken a guild's mana or let rivals claim their contracts with chiefs. You're watching the koru weaver clutch her cloak, accusing the other of copying a sacred spiral. It's not just theft, it's a stab at her guild's soul. Here's the quirky bit. Some guilds spread tales that stolen patterns brought bad luck, like a warrior tripping in battle. Imagine a weaver smirking as her rival's cloak curses. A clumsy fighter sounds like a petty prank. Right, historians still argue whether these tales were strategic gossip or genuine belief. Did weavers trust the curse, or were they just scaring off design thieves? You edge closer, the air crackling with their words. The Niho Taniwa weaver snaps back, claiming her guild's pattern is older, blessed by an ancestor's vision. Designs aren't just art, they're tapu tied to Wakapapa and gods like Hinate Iwaiwa. Copying one risks angering the spirits, but it also dilutes a guild's reputation. If a rival's cloak outshines yours in battle, your hapu might lose favor with the chief, costing you resources or status. You wince, feeling the stakes. It's like your rival acing a group project you slaved over, but with ancestral shade thrown in. You smirk, picturing the weavers glaring like you'd eye a co-worker stealing your lunch. The argument escalates until an elder steps in, her voice cutting through like a taiaha's swing. She warns of consequences, feuds, spark raids, broken alliances, even warriors refusing cloaks from a tainted guild. You recall that young weaver practicing her moko swirl, her hand shaky under scrutiny. Rivalries make that pressure worse. Guilds guard their patterns with secrecy, teaching only trusted members and using coded chants to obscure meanings. A leaked design could let rivals weave stronger cloaks or claim your guild's mana. You're struck by the fragility, how one slip could unravel a sisterhood. You chuckle, thinking it's like a family recipe war, but with divine wrath on the line. You slip back to the weaver's tension lingering like smoke. The guild's pride fuels their craft, but it also breeds suspicion. A weaver from another hapu might visit her smile, hiding a spy's intent to steal a koru's curve. The women work on their hands, steady, but you sense their vigilance. Those cloaks aren't just armor, they're battlegrounds. Their patterns a source of unity and strife. Ever navigate a clique's drama? That's the weaver's world, every stitch a test of loyalty. As you settle against the wearer's wall, the village's hum, crackling fires, distant waves, eases the edge. You're starting to feel the weaver's strain, their designs not just art, but anchors of identity. Those patterns tie them to their ancestors, and you're about to see how those guiding spirits shape every sacred thread. You're nestled in the quiet glow of a Maori village's wear, the midnight air cool against the woven walls, carrying the scent of smoldering embers and fresh flax. The soft rustle of fibers and the weaver's murmured karakia weave a gentle rhythm, but you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their niho taniwa, and koru patterns pulsing with sacred mana. Remember that heated clash between rival weavers, their voices sharp over a stolen spiral. That rivalry shows the cloak's power, but it's the ancestors who truly guide their creation. Now you're revealing how ancestral spirits shape these ritual cloaks, and trust me, it's deeper than the roots of a kauri tree. Picture yourself sitting cross-legged in the wear, the torchlight casting shadows that seem to dance like spirits. A senior weaver works her hands twisting pingao into a golden koru, but her eyes are distant, as if listening to voices only she can hear. In Maori culture, ancestors Tupuna are ever present, their mana guiding every sacred act. For war conveyance cloaks, weavers call on Tupuna to bless the weave, ensuring the cloak's tapu protects the warrior. Historically, by the 18th century, Maori spiritual practices infused weaving with ancestral reverence, with weavers often tracing their skills to legendary figures like Hineta Iwaiwa or ancestral matriarchs. You're watching the weaver pause, offering a karakia to her tupuna, her voice low, like she's speaking to family across time. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers claim their ancestors appeared in dreams, showing them new patterns or correcting flawed stitches. Imagine your great-grandma popping into your sleep to fix your knitting. Sounds like a cozy ghost story, right? Historians still argue whether these dreams were spiritual visits or creative inspiration. Did Tupuna truly guide weavers, or were they channeling their own skill through ancestral lore? You lean closer, the flax's earthy tang mingling with the wearer's warmth. The weaver's karakia invokes a specific Tupuna, perhaps a famed weaver whose cloaks saved warriors generations ago. Her spirit is believed to steady the weaver's hands, ensuring the koru's curve, or niho taniwa's edge, carries the right mana. You're struck by the intimacy, the way ancestors are woven into every thread like a family heirloom stitched into cloth. The cloak isn't just for the warrior. It's a bridge to the past, tying him to his waka papa. You smirk, thinking it's like wearing your grandma's lucky scarf. But this scarf stops spears and curses. The Weavers Guild honors Tupuna with rituals. Before weaving begins, offerings of food or a woven token buried near a sacred tree. A misstep like weaving without acknowledging ancestors could anger them, sapping the cloak's power. You wince, imagining the fallout. It's like forgetting to call your parents before a big event, but with spiritual consequences. The weavers' chants name their tupuna, weaving their stories into the cloak's patterns. A koru might echo an ancestor's journey. A tuku-tuku line their strength. You're mesmerized, seeing the cloak is a living genealogy, each thread a whisper from the past. You notice a young weaver, her hands hesitant as she mimics the elder's karakia. She's learning to call her own tupuna a rite of passage, as vital as mastering the loom. The guild's unity hinges on this shared reverence, but it's fragile. If a weaver dishonors an ancestor, say, by weaving a pattern without permission, the tupuna might withdraw their mana, cursing the cloak. You chuckle, picturing an ancestor side-eyeing a sloppy stitch like you judge a bad group project. Ever feel someone watching over your shoulder? That's the weaver's world, every knot a nod to the past. As you ease back, the ware's hum, rustling flax, flickering flames, feels like an ancestral lullaby. You're starting to grasp the weaver's bond with their tupuna, Their cloaks, not just armor, but tributes to those who came before. Those sacred threads carry centuries of love, but mistakes happen, and you're about to face the consequences when rituals go wrong. You're huddled in the dim glow of a Maori village's wear, the late-night air sharp with the scent of flax and the faint crackle of a dying fire. The weaver's soft karakia hums like a distant tide, and you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their koru patterns woven with ancestral mana. Remember that weaver calling her to Puna, her voice bridging time. Her devotion wove power into the cloak, but the spirits are unforgiving. Now you're facing the consequences when these sacred weaving rituals go wrong, and trust me, it's heavier than a mist-soaked cloak. Picture yourself standing in the mirage shadow, the village hushed as a weaver kneels before a tohunga, her head bowed. She's in trouble. Her cloak meant for a chief's battle was woven without the proper karakia, a breach of tapu that's left the guild reeling. In Maori culture, rituals are the backbone of sacred crafts, and war conveyance cloaks demand perfection. A mistake, like skipping a chant mishandling harakeke, or weaving during a tapu time, could strip the cloak's mana, leaving the warrior vulnerable to spears or makutu curses. Historically, by the 18th century, such breaches were serious, often punished, to restore balance and appease the gods. You're watching the weaver's hands tremble, her guild's honor at stake. Here's the quirky bit. Some believed a flawed cloak could summon mischievous spirits like Taniwa to prank the village with bad luck. Imagine a dragon-like creature hiding your tools for a giggle. Sounds like a campfire tale, right? Historians still argue whether these stories were spiritual warnings or ways to enforce discipline. Did weavers fear Taniwa? Or were elders just keeping them in line? You step closer, the air thick with tension. The tohunga's voice is stern, recounting how the weaver rushed her work, neglecting to honor Tene with a dawn karakia. The cloak, now tainted, was worn in a skirmish, and the chief returned wounded, blaming its weak mana. You wince, feeling her shame. Punishment varies. Some weavers face exile from the guild, others perform cleansing rituals like weaving a new cloak under strict oversight. This weaver's lucky. She's tasked with burying the flawed cloak near a sacred tree, offering karakia to soothe the spirits. It's like rewriting a failed essay, but with divine judges and a whole village watching. You notice the guild's reaction. Elders whisper, apprentices avoid her gaze. A breach doesn't just harm the weaver, it risks the hapu's trust. Warriors might refuse the guild's cloaks, fearing weak protection, while rivals could spread gossip to steal their prestige. You smirk, thinking it's like a bad Yelp review tanking a business, but with ancestral stakes. The weaver's mistake wasn't malice, just haste, but tapu is merciless. If the spirits or tupuna are angered, they might curse the guild with failed harvests or lost battles. You're struck by the weight, how one slip can ripple through a community. You recall that young weaver practicing her moko swirl, her hands shaky under scrutiny. This is why mistakes aren't just errors. They're betrayals of trust land and ancestors. The guild's rules are ironclad. Every karakia must be perfect, every plant handled with care. Some punishments are harsher banishment or a public shaming. Where the weaver's name is struck from stories, you shudder imagining the loneliness. It's like being ghosted by your whole friend group, but forever. You chuckle softly, picturing the weaver, double-checking her chants like you'd triple-check a risky text. As you slip back into the where, the village's hush rustling leaves distant waves feels heavy with judgment. You're starting to grasp the weaver's burden, their cloaks not just armor, but fragile pacts with the divine. Those sacred threads demand perfection, and failure cuts deep. But the cloak's power reaches beyond the village, and you're about to track how their secrets traveled through trade, carrying mana to distant shores. You're weaving through the early morning mist of a Maori village, the air alive with the scent of sea salt and blooming rata flowers, the distant roar of waves blending with the village's waking hum. You're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred koru and nihotaniwa patterns pulsing with mana guarded by weavers who fear the spirit's wrath. Remember that shamed weaver burying her flawed cloak to appease Tain. Her mistake showed the cloak's fragility, but their power reaches far beyond the village. Now you're tracking how these cloaks were shared through trade, their secrets crossing seas. And trust me, it's trickier than bartering for the last fish at market. Picture yourself at a coastal pa, where canoes bob against the shore, laden with flax cloaks and carved taonga. Maori traders, their faces tattooed with moko haggle with visitors from distant iwi or later European sailors. War conveyance cloaks woven with ritual plants are prized treasures not just for warriors, but as diplomatic gifts. Historically, by the late 18th century, Maori trade networks spanned Aotearoa, with cloaks exchanged between tribes to seal alliances or honor chiefs. Some even reached European hands after contact, traded for muskets or tools. But sharing a cloak's secrets, like its patterns or tapu, was rare, guarded by guilds to protect their mana. You're watching a weaver present a cloak to a visiting chief, her eyes wary, ensuring no sacred knowledge slips. Here's the quirk a bit. Some traders claimed cloaks carried traveling mana, protecting canoes from storms if hung at the prow. Imagine your jacket doubling as a lucky sail sounds like a sailor's tall tale, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or a way to inflate trade value. Did cloaks truly guard voyages, or were traders hyping their wares? You step closer, the salty breeze tugging at your hair. The weaver's cloak shimmering with pingao is a masterpiece. Its koru patterns a silent vow of peace. But she's cautious. Only the cloak changes hands, not its story. Guilds forbade teaching outsiders the watu technique or the karakia that blessed the plants. A leaked pattern could let another iwi mimic their designs, diluting the guild's prestige, or worse anger, the tupuna tied to the cloak's mana. You're struck by the balance, the way trade spreads the cloak's fame, but locks their secrets tight. It's like sharing your art online, but hiding the sketchbook fame, not formulas. You notice a Pakeha trader, his eyes gleaming as he fingers the cloak's edge, probing for a hint of its craft. He's out of luck. The weaver's smile is polite, but ironclad. Guilds use decoys like simplified patterns on trade cloaks to throw off curious eyes. You smirk, imagining the trader puzzling over a fake koru like it's a cryptic app update. The real designs, those sacred swirls and zigzags, stay with the guild, their tapu too potent for outsiders. But trade isn't without risk. A greedy weaver might sell a pattern inviting spiritual backlash, or rival iwi's wrath. You wince recalling the punished weaver's shame. It's like selling a family heirloom, knowing it could curse you. You wander along the shore where canoes gleam under dawn's light. The cloaks trade spreads their legend stories of warriors shielded by flax and pangao, reach distant shores, even European museums later on. But the guild's secrecy holds firm their karakia and techniques, a locked vault. You chuckle, picturing a weaver dodging questions like you'd sidestep a nosy relative, ever guard a secret recipe. That's the weaver's game played across oceans. Their cloaks are ambassadors, but their mana stays home, woven into the land's heartbeat. As you turn back to the village, the pause, lapping waves traders' shouts feels alive with possibility. You're starting to see the cloaks reach their fibers carrying mana beyond Aotearoa, while their secrets stay rooted. Those sacred threads shaped more than battles, they wove a cultural legacy. And you're about to trace how they live on in Maori art. You're wandering through the golden haze of a Maori village, the midday sun warming the earth as the scent of blooming pohutukawa and fresh flax drifts on the breeze. The village thrums with life carvers, shaping wood children, chasing each other across the marae, and you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their sacred patterns traded but never fully revealed. Remember that weaver at the coastal paw, her smile hiding the guild's secrets from a curious Pakeha trader. Her cloaks carried mana across seas, but their influence runs deeper, shaping Maori cultural arts. Now you're tracing how these cloaks left a legacy in art. And trust me, it's as vibrant as a tui's iridescent feathers. Picture yourself stepping into a warenui, its walls alive with tuku-tuku panels and carved pupu, their swirling koru and jagged niho-taniwa, echoing the cloak's designs. These aren't just decorations, they are stories woven into the heart of Maori culture. The war conveyance cloaks with their ritual plants and tapu patterns didn't just arm warriors, they inspired artists across generations. Historically, by the 19th century, Maori weaving influenced broader art forms with cloak patterns like moko swirls and tuku-tuku lines appearing in carvings, tattoos, and even waka designs. The cloak's sacred symbols became a visual language tying communities to their waka papa. You're running your fingers along a tuku-tuku panel, its flax lattice, mimicking a cloak's weave, feeling the weaver's touch in every knot. Here's the quirky bit. Some carvers claimed the cloak's patterns, whispered design ideas through ancestral dreams guiding their chisels. Imagine your sketchbook chatting with your great-grandma. Sounds like a creative fever dream, right? Historians still argue whether these dreams were spiritual or artistic homage. Did Tupuna inspire the art? Or were carvers riffing on the weaver's genius? You step closer, the Werenui's cedar scent grounding you. A carved pupu looms its koru eyes mirroring the cloak's spirals, a nod to growth and ancestry. The weaver's influence is everywhere, in the tomoko, inked on a warrior's face, its curves echoing a cloak's moko swirl, or in a waka's prow carved with niho-taniwa to ward off sea spirits. You're awestruck seeing the cloaks as seeds, their patterns sprouting across Maori art like ferns in a forest. It's not just aesthetics, it's mana, carrying the weaver's tapu into new forms. You smirk, thinking it's like your favorite band's logo popping up on murals and tattoos. But here, It's a sacred thread binding a culture. You wander outside, where a weaver demonstrates her craft to young girls, her hands twisting pingao into a tiny koru. Her patterns live on, not just in cloaks, but in modern mats, baskets, and even contemporary Maori art, where artists remix tuku-tuku lines into paintings. The cloak's legacy is resilience. Their designs are a bridge between past and present. But it's bittersweet. The weavers' names are often lost, their guild secrets fading with time. You recall that weaver guarding her patterns from the trader, her secrecy both a shield and a shadow. You chuckle, picturing her ghost nodding at a museum cloak, anonymous but proud. Ever leave a mark no one knew was yours? That's her vibe etched in art. You pause by a carved gateway, its tuku-tuku pattern shimmering in the sun. The cloak's influence feels alive, their mana flowing through every swirl and zigzag, from Waranui walls to Demoko ink. The weaver's hand shaped a cultural tapestry, their plants and prayers rooting it in the land. You're struck by their quiet power, how a single koru can carry centuries of story. But the weavers themselves, they juggled more than looms, and you're about to explore their dual roles, balancing craft and community in a world as complex as their weaves. As you drift back to the village's heart, the Marai's pulse laughter carving chisels distant waves feels like a living song. You're starting to see the cloaks reach their patterns, not just art, but anchors of identity tying Maori to their roots. Those sacred fibers wove more than war, they wove a legacy. And the weavers' lives are the next thread to unravel. You're weaving through the twilight hum of a Maori village, the air soft with the scent of wood smoke and blooming manuka. The distant crash of waves a steady heartbeat. The village glows with torchlight, and you're still chasing those war conveyance cloaks, their koru and tuku-tuku patterns echoing in Waranui carvings and Demoko ink. Remember that weaver teaching young girls her pingao koru, a bridge to the past. Her craft shaped a cultural legacy, but her life was more than looms. Now you're exploring the weaver's dual roles, balancing sacred craft with community duties, and trust me, it's busier than a marae during a huey. Picture yourself trailing a weaver as she moves from the where to the marae, her hands still dusted with flax fibers. By day, she's a master of the Watu technique crafting war cloaks, with ritual plants her karakia invoking tupuna and hinata iwawa. By night, she's a mother teacher and mediator settling disputes or tending the communal kumara gardens. In Maori society, women often held multifaceted roles, their weaving skills elevating their mana while tying them to hapu responsibilities. Historically, by the 18th century, weavers were central to community life, their cloaks strengthening warriors while their wisdom guided Wanao decisions. You're watching her pause to scold a child for trampling flax, her voice firm but warm, like she's juggling a dozen roles at once. Here's the quirky bit. Some weavers used weaving metaphors in village disputes, comparing arguments to tangled threads that need patience to unravel. Imagine settling a fight with "let's not knot the wakapapa." Sounds like a family reunion quip, right? Historians still argue whether this was deliberate leadership or just cultural flair. Did weavers consciously mediate, or was their craft a natural lens for life? You follow her to the marae, where she joins elders discussing a trade with a neighboring iwi. Her voice carries weight, her cloaks arm the hapu's warriors, giving her sway and strategy. She's not just an artisan, she's a keeper of tapu, ensuring rituals are followed from harvesting plants to blessing cloaks. You're impressed, but the balance is tough. Weaving demands focus hours of chanting, twisting, harakeke, polishing pingao. But the village pulls her in every direction. A sick elder needs care, a young weaver needs guidance, and the chief wants a new cloak by dawn. You wince, feeling the strain. It's like juggling a job, family, and a side hustle, except your hustle saves lives and talks to spirits. You notice her slip back to the wear, her hands deftly picking up a wenu to align threads. Even here, she's teaching, showing an apprentice how to weave a niho taniwa without breaking tapu. Her dual life isn't just duty, it's survival. If she neglects the community, her mana dips weaken in her guild's cloaks. If she slacks on weaving, the warriors suffer, and the tupuna might turn away. You smirk, thinking it's like keeping your boss and your mom happy at the same time tricky. But she's a pro. Ever multitask until you're dizzy? That's her day every day with a side of sacred chants. You catch her humming a karakia, her eyes tired but bright. She's a bridge between land and gods, warriors, and Wanao past and present. Her cloaks arm the hapu, but her presence holds it together, her laughter calming a tense meeting or her advice settling a feud. You chuckle picturing her delegating like a CEO with a mussel shell instead of a clipboard. Her guild sisters share the load, but the weight of tapu makes their lives a tightrope, one she walks with grace. As you ease away from the wear, the village's rhythm crackling fires. Children's giggles, lapping waves, feels like a warm hug. You're starting to grasp the weaver's world, their dual roles, stitching community and craft into a seamless whole. Those cloaks are their legacy, but their lives were the loom. Yet even sacred threads fray, and you're about to reflect on why the cloak's rituals slowly faded like stars at dawn. You're drifting through the quiet of a Maori village at dawn, the air soft with the scent of dew-kissed flax, and the gentle rustle of pohutukawa leaves. The village is stirring fires, crackle faintly, and the first tui calls echo across the marae. But you're still tethered to those war conveyance cloaks, their niho taniwa and koru patterns woven with ancestral mana. Remember that weaver juggling her roles, her hands steady as she balanced craft and community. Her life was a testament to the cloak's power, but even the strongest fibers fade. Now, you're reflecting on why the cloak's sacred rituals slowly vanished. And trust me, it's as poignant as a waiata fading into the mist. Picture yourself standing by an abandoned ware, its woven walls fraying the looms inside, silent under a layer of dust. The war conveyance cloaks, once vibrant with harakeke and pingao, are now rare, their rituals a whisper in the wind. The guilds, the karakia, the tapu that bound weaver to warrior, they've dimmed like embers cooling after fire. Historically, the 19th century brought upheaval to Maori culture. European colonization with its muskets, diseases, and land loss disrupted traditional practices. By the 1840s, warfare shifted, and cloaks, while still valued, lost their central role as muskets replaced taiaha. The guilds weakened as communities scattered and many weavers turned to weaving for trade rather than war. You're touching a faded cloak, its koru, barely visible, feeling the weight of a world slipping away. Here's the quirky bit. Some elders claimed the spirits hid the rituals guiding weavers to forget certain karakia to protect their tapu from pakeha hands. Imagine Hinete Iwaiwa hitting pause on her own legacy. Sounds like a divine plot twist, right? Historians still argue whether this was intentional or a coping myth. Did the spirits guard the secrets, or did trauma and change simply erode them? You step outside the village's quiet wrapping around you. The weaver's secrecy, once their strength, hastened the fade. Rituals were oral, passed through chants and dreams, but as elders died lost to disease or conflict, apprentices couldn't learn the full tapestry. Colonization schools and churches pulled young Maori toward new crafts, leaving looms to gather cobwebs. You wince imagining a weaver's frustration, her tupuna's karakia half-remembered. It's like losing your grandma's recipe mid-cook, except it's a sacred pact with the gods. The cloak's patterns live on in art tukutuku panels to moko, but their wartime mana tied to specific plants and chants drifted to shadow. You recall that weaver at the coastal pa guarding her guild's secrets from a pakeha trader. Her vigilance preserved the cloak's tapu, but it couldn't stop time. The ritual's complexity, karakia for each plant tapu, rules for every stitch, made them fragile. When warfare waned and hapu merged or moved, the need for war cloaks faded, and with it, the guild's purpose. You smirk, thinking it's like a group chat going silent when the project's done, except this project was a culture's heartbeat. Some weavers adapted crafting cloaks for ceremonies, but the sacred war rituals so tied to battle couldn't bend. You chuckle softly, picturing a weaver's ghost sighing at a museum cloak, its mana misread. The village feels still its legacy woven into the land, but quieter now. The cloak's story of plants, prayers, and warriors endures in fragments in the koru of a carving or the flax of a modern basket. You're starting to feel their loss, a thread cut too soon, but also their strength, how they held a people together through war and change. Those weavers with their dual lives and sacred tools wove more than cloth, they wove a world, and its echo lingers. The village fades into a soft blur, the horizon glowing where sea meets sky like a cloak draped over the world. You're standing on the marae, the earth cool beneath you, the air whispering with the voices of weavers, warriors, and tupuna. Their cloaks woven with harakeke and heart-carried mana through battles, and beyond their patterns a map of love and loss. Though the rituals dimmed, their spirit hums in Aotearoa's hills, in every koru and chant that survives. Let the waves' rhythm cradle you, the stars above a gentle guide. Close your eyes, feel the land's embrace, and drift into a dream where the weaver's threads still sing. Good night.